Folks, welcome to another episode of the GPH podcast. We're so happy to be back with another episode of current students at NYU GPH. Now, due to popular demand from the previous interview, we're bringing another batch of students and asking them similar questions that might be helpful to you and your journey as you come to NYU, no matter what year you're at. So, rather than me introducing all our guests, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself, the program you're in, and what made you join GPH to begin with. We can start off with you, Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca. I'm going to my second year in an MS for biostats. The reason I joined public health, are you specifically GPH or public health in general?
You can, yeah, whatever your story is.
Sure. So I graduated my bachelor's with a degree in biology, and I thought I wanted to go into a PhD for immunology. So I had previously done research in regeneration, so I got curious about the flip side of that, which is cancer. So I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I had studied cancer vaccines for pancreatic cancer. While I was there, I was on a clinical trial for our own patented thing, and that was exactly the time when the pandemic hit. So it became glaringly obvious that a lot of academia has a blind spot to diversity. Not only were the COVID clinical trials not the most diverse, but a lot of the clinical treatments weren't being rolled out to maybe the most in need communities. So I felt really trapped in that way, and I wanted to have a wider net of influence on in medicine and in health. So I got really interested in public health, specifically on the statistical side of that and the more quantitative inferential side. So I looked into different schools, and I would say that GPH, NYU specifically, has the most diverse faculty. We have Black women of color who are professors of biostatistics, and I can't say the same for a lot of other schools. For example, Melody Goodman, she recently won a statistical award, and recently we got a Black woman as our dean, so Dr. Holden. So yeah, that was a big draw for me, because I feel like specifically in academia, I think we need to start including more voices and different voices, and specifically in public health. Yeah.
Love it. Wow. That is a powerful introduction. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on the same path as you, whether they're coming to NYU or not, that are thinking about this and how to find their path. So we'll get more into that through the podcast as well. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem.
Mehek.
Hi, I'm Mehek. I'm a second year MP8 student. My concentration is public health policy. I went to medical school and practiced in India for a few years before coming here. And I worked in government hospitals in the middle of nowhere. So it was really obvious to me that there was like greater change that needed to take place outside of just providing care. It was more of a systemic issue. And because NYU, the School of Global Public Health, caters specifically to global, or it tries to be more global. I don't know if it is as widespread as it should be, but at least they attempt to deal with more global issues. So that's what I was interested in. And yeah, and through NYU, I got this amazing internship at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens, which is extremely diverse city hospital. I'm obsessed with it. And I love going to work every day. So I literally just got lucky because one of my professors, who's an NYU professor, just got elected to be the CEO of Elmhurst Hospital, which is like the biggest level 1 trauma center in New York City. And it was also the epicenter of COVID. So it's a huge, huge honor that I get to work there, that I get to serve the community there, and I'm really happy. And none of this would have happened if it wasn't for NYU. So really grateful for that. Yeah.
These are some powerful introductions, everybody. Even the ambulance in the background was cheering you on for a few seconds. Love to hear that. Welcome, Mehek and Corinne.
Hi, my name is Corrinne Tendo. I am actually a second year online MPH student. My concentration is global health. My background actually, my focus is really on climate change and health, and the fact that climate change affects the communities that they don't necessarily cause the climate change to occur, but they're most affected by the effects of climate change. And that actually comes from my background of being in pharmaceutical sales and just going through and working at different parts, different territories, and seeing the disparity within the healthcare system. So my goal and my reason for getting into public health is to work towards like policies to help strengthen healthcare systems. I know in life we can't have a perfect balance, but at least to get some up to some standards that folks could go in, they could get the assistance that they need, and get access to providers. So that's basically why I'm here. But I would like to do that also on an international level, which is part of the reason why I applied to NYU's program, because I wanted to get exposure being in New York City and a great exposure to like the international community as well. So that was my main draw to NYU.
Welcome. Thank you, Corinne. So what's unique is that everyone is coming from a very different background, and all of you have a diverse set of interests, but you're still under the same roof. You're at GPH. And I know that we can talk about the external endlessly and what made you come to NYU and that entire journey, and you all have showcased that so well to just start us off. And those were a few of my questions that I don't even need to ask because you all have shared it so nicely. So I'm curious to think about the internal, what happens under this roof at 708 Broadway, where the campus is. Tell us about some of your experience within the NYU system. Perhaps I know, Corinne, you're online, and then the two of you are in person. But what has that experience been like when getting involved on campus, whether it's at clubs? What has NYU shown you in your journey so far?
First of all, we would like to bring to everyone's attention that Rebecca is our graduate president for the student council.
Yes.
So yay to that. And I serve with her on the student council as the events officer. We were there together last year as well, and it was so much fun that we crazily decided to do it again. So that was nice.
Yeah. I know. I decided to join y'all for the fun. I figured I might as well join in for the fun.
And now, because we had so much fun, we got other people to come with us. So it was just like, setting the stage for this amazing team. And so all three of us are on the student council this year, and we're very, very excited to make things happen. For me personally, I love some of the professors. Like, I'm just like, I don't know. I have never met professors who taught that well, or were so passionate. I love getting into debates with professors about politics. Sometimes I don't shut up in class, so that's that. But that's like, I mean, this environment is so rare to be able to have these conversations in a professional studying environment. So I really like that we're encouraged to share our opinions and stuff. And so far it's been nice, and we have had opportunities to get to know our faculty outside of class, like on whatever events we have with them. So it's been a really good experience so far.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I think it comes to the idea of just a really strong community with NYU. I think you're taking people who are studying different concentrations from different walks of life. We have people who are fresh out of undergrad, who have been in the medical profession for years. We have people who had gotten their PhD and are now interested in pursuing public health. So we're getting a lot of different perspectives, not only academically, but globally. And I think the fact that a care and genuine passion for health equity is strong enough to bring us all together and to bring us to want to go out and volunteer, want to walk onto protests, especially for this recent year of COVID, of BLM, of Roe v. Wade. I'm constantly inspired by my peers because of how they show up, how they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. And in New York City, the person in need is your neighbor. You know, no one's having an easy time in this kind of city. So the fact everyone's willing to lend a helping hand, whether it's homework, whether it's emotional, which is why we have such a great time on the student council board, because people are so willing to come out. And last year we had a donation trolley for AGPHI in Chinatown, who were recently going through a lot of physical violence. So I think that is something that you can't read about on a website, is like how strong our community is for each other and then for our neighbor. Additionally, I feel like the faculty reflect that, which I was very impressed by. Last year, I had one of my professors send out a poll asking everyone about their mental health, if they felt like they were learning the material well. And I've never really had that experience with a professor before. And sitting on faculty meetings, you hear the rhetoric of them wanting so badly to just impart the public health dream on their students. Regardless of how smart someone is, how rich someone is, they want everyone to leave with an idea that health equity is possible and that we are the revolutionaries to that. And I think it's really beautiful that our faculty still hold on to that dream. Like, we've seen COVID and we were already depressed after that. Imagine going through like the HIV crisis, going through 9/11 and the whole mess in the Middle East, and still believing that globally everyone can have the right to health. It's constantly inspiring. It's beautiful to talk to them. And I think this community is just really strong and really beautiful.
Okay.
Well said.
Yeah,
So inspiring.
I really love us, so that's why.
And just to add a little bit onto that, too, just talking about a sense of community, and even for me being online, being able to still experience the NYU community online, that has been for me like really remarkable, because of the fact that, you know, sometimes you say out of sight, out of mind, we're not really on campus, that you might tend to forget about us, but I have still been able to connect with people on campus still, regardless of the fact whether, as I said, I'm in Canada, that, you know, I'm still connected. I'm still meeting people. I got involved with this year would be student government, but also last year I got involved with the Applied Global Public Health Initiative, one of the labs on campus with GPH. And that too was really, really great because I was able to connect, and even dealing with professors too. They have been very accommodating for us, and just helping us, you know, like at least still get access to material, because most of our material is asynchronous, too, depending on the coursework. And a coursework like biostatistics, as I look at Rebecca, it's not one of the most, let's say, not one of the most easiest courses for some people who are not biostatisticians, as I can pronounce the word. But yes, they help. You had Zoom sessions with additional help, etc. So I mean, the faculty just being there and so supportive. That was really been like an amazing. I had an excellent first year experience at GPH because of that, and I didn't really feel as if I was just like at the side because, you know, I was online.
Can you all take me to the listeners to a moment from your classes? So let's go back under the roof, or even in the Zoom world for you,
Yeah.
Corinne, where one of those classes where, man, this is amazing. A shift, I would say. Does any moment strike you in one of the classes that made you realize that NYU is the place for you? Any class with whichever professor. I'm curious to hear from each of you.
Yeah, like I think my first semester at NYU, one of the first classes I took was with my professor, who's now my boss, and she's an Ecuadorian person who came to New York to study undergrad, and she's she's one of those immigrant journeys that you can see live out live. And not only did she have real world experience, because she had like 15 years of experience in hospital and public health management. Like it was just it's everyone, the faculty at NYU, they're so well established, they have so much experience. And like when you're idealistic as a student and you're just like, no, why can't we just fix this? Like explain to me why I can't just do this, because I can see that the solution for this problem is so obvious, and why are we not doing it? And then hearing back from your professors that, you know what, like reality check, that's not how it works in real life, and there's a long bureaucratic process, and you have to play politics and all of that stuff. And so that that was Professor Helen Artiaga who brought that, like pushed back on a lot of my idealism. And I was like, how can you think the US healthcare system is a good system? And I just didn't understand her optimism. And then once I started working at her hospital, I see it now. I see it. I see what she was talking about. And then one of my other professors, who is Professor Silver, she's like the head of the policy department. She explained to us this, like we had a case study where we read about Ban the Box, which was about criminalization of Black people specifically. When they went to job interviews, they would like ask them to tick this box of, do you have a past criminal record? And then as soon as they ticked that box, it was no one would look at their resume. So as soon as they were a convicted criminal, they would have an impossible time finding a job. And so we went over that case in real time and like divided ourselves into different parties. Like someone was a minister, or someone was like from a think tank, and everyone had that debate in real time, trying to figure out like the pros and cons of each side. And you kind of understood how personalities work in politics, because it's all about the strong man person who's able to convince everyone else to come along with you. And that was really and you have like, you make compromises, you agree on deals. And it was very fascinating to have that play out in a classroom setting. And just be like, no, I'm gonna give you 10 million for this and 10 million for that. And it was really nice, it was really fun. So it's, yeah, so those were my experiences that I really liked a lot.
Folks, we've had a podcast with Professor Helen Arteaga. Check it out on our channel if you're interested.
Oh
And
my God.
Dr. Pagan, we had a dual interview with them
Yeah,
before.
I am obsessed with Artiaga. She is like my I am her diehard fan. Like I will go to the ends of the earth for this lady. So she is amazing.
You're really selling this class, so I want to take it.
I know, yeah. What is it?
It's public health. It's public health and management, like the compulsory class. So you take that in the first or second I think whichever year. It's mandatory for everyone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm in the
I
MS,
don't.
so unfortunately, I don't get these fun classes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great class, because it's for every MPH student. So it's everyone coming in from different concentrations.
Okay.
And yeah. She's
kind of
one.
like this podcast with
Wow.
with that, Corinne, what was one of your moments in the online world when it came to wow, that session was interesting.
I think for me, actually, I'm going back to first semester too as well. It was actually one of my first classes with Dr. Chris Dickey. It was data, data. I can never say it. Still up to this day, DDM. But yes, but basically what it was is that we had a lot of discussion in the class, and he really invoked discussion with everyone. And at the point that sometimes some discussions got a little bit challenging with some of the students, but the fact that we were talking about like real world public health issues, and the fact that we were looking at how data influenced the decisions that we made for as that all made, well, just hypothetically speaking in class, but for us we will make in the future. That I think was very eye-opening because of the fact that most of us, yes, we know that data is important. When you do a clinical study, you get the data, you analyze it, and you get, your conclusion. But as public health officials, we don't necessarily think, practitioners, we don't think that we necessarily have to use the data as much as, say, like somebody in statistics or EPI, but we do, because in order to implement a proper policy or anything, you have to have the solid data facts behind it. And that was the purpose of that class. So that really helped. It was an eye opener for all of us on how we had to apply and utilize data. And also too, he really invoked really good class discussions too as well. So that really made it a lot of fun too for us. Yeah, but a very good learning experience.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Cool. So I come from a biostatistics background. So for me, I think one of the biggest classes for me was my machine learning class, because it feels very, I think the belief in health equity can feel almost like a multiple head monster in a way, and that there's so many issues you need to tackle. But in my machine learning class, I was able to do a project on melanoma, and with my professor, Dr. Yang Feng, not only was he able to take someone like me who has virtually no coding background, but at the end of that class, I was able to see how we're able to apply algorithm learning to help public health issues. For example, I did melanoma, in that while clinical professionals can look at your, let's call it a skin lesion, and be able to predict whether or not you need a screening about 66% of the time, we were able to get an algorithm that was able to predict it about 75% of the time. And something like that would not only decrease the cost significantly, but also decrease the travel time. If someone could just take a photo of their skin lesion and put it through the algorithm. If someone can't take time off of work, someone has 5 kids and they're a single parent. So being able to be open to the cutting edge of science and the cutting edge of medtech, I think is really exciting for me, and a world that I wasn't even aware of. So I think the tools and the research that's done at GPH is, there's a big section of the biostatistics department, which is deep learning. And I think the fact that they're the frontiers on that end is, not only do you get to learn from them, like Dr. Haishu and like I said, Dr. Yang Feng, but to also be able to help their projects move forward and have these toolkits on your back to empower you into really feasibly making these equitable changes in public health was a really world-opening experience.
So the three of you are extraordinary examples of individuals that are taking the inside NYU world out into our global society, as I see. So there's something unique to it, and a lot of new students are probably coming into NYU right now. So I'd love to hear what was the best piece of advice the three of you got in your first semester at NYU? What sticks to you, which kind of you have carried forward to this day right now when you're taking all of this into the world and doing all these amazing things? What's a piece of advice that stands out to you from your first semester?
That's a hard one to answer.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
me too. I'm really thinking on that one too as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's one thing was just to be really organized. I think that's what a lot of people told us, that we had to be like really organized. Because there's now coming in, there's so much information to sift through, and you're now getting used to being in graduate school, that it was the key was to be organized and try to make sure you plan everything. Someone even told me, like, I normally use my phone as a calendar for my calendar events. Like, I plug everything in there. They said, get a paper calendar. You are going to need it. I was like, I listened to that advice and I got it. That was actually very helpful because you could see everything at a glance. You could map out your entire month and see everything, when everything, all the papers are due, etc. What meetings you have. Some of us got really involved, so what meetings you have, what group meetings, etc. So everything at a glance. So that was actually one good piece of advice.
You'll definitely need that for the senator position. You're going to be very busy with a lot of meetings.
I know.
Time management is a huge one
Yeah.
for anyone, especially coming to this world where there's so much information, data, projects to work on. And that's a good place to start because it's easy to get lost, but how do we organize ourselves and get sorted out?
Mhm.
So would Mehek and Rebecca say this is something similar along the lines of time management?
Yeah, to like piggyback off of that, I would say it's a lot of information. It's a lot of depressing information as well. I think in a lot of our classes, you learn like there's a billion risk factors everyone has, and like some people just like are born into awful circumstances, and it can feel like you can't help everyone. And I think that was really discouraging for me in the beginning. Just hearing what we're put up against and not knowing where to start and feeling hopeless. But one of my professors, Dr. David Abramson, told me that you'll see a messy room, but you have to start somewhere to start cleaning it. So, and also, it's not just you cleaning that room. You have all your peers, all of your friends, all the faculty in different specialties. Someone's wiping the windows, someone's throwing out the trash. And so it can feel like a lot, and it can feel really distressing that you can't do it all alone. But in some ways, that's where the burden is lifted, in that you have a huge team. And the goal of this community is to work together. And I think that's really fun.
For me, I think I guess I never learned policy before. I had studied epidemiology and biostats and community health, like social and behavioral health a little bit in med school, but never studied public health policy. And I don't know if it's a advice or just in general, what I felt was that I was able to gather a tool and a skill set to make actionable change happen. Like, to me, I'm just like, no, I'm very focused on the things that need to be changed, and I want it to happen like really quickly. So learning policy and understanding how you can change policies in real time in legislation or in hospitals or in whichever situation you might be, like changing NYU's policies or changing Elmhurst Hospital's policies. And that's so I'm actually working on implementing new policies in the hospital right now, and it's so empowering. So I would just say that for every problem there's also a solution, and everything we're learning at school at GPH is amazing. Like, it's a great skill set to have knowledge of epi and biostats and everything else. So especially weird classes that you don't think are gonna matter. Like, we had to do this class called designing and management of public health organizations, and I wasn't that fond of it because it was a lot of management literature. But as soon as like you start working in the real world, that's what you need to know. So even though I didn't like it, I'm very grateful that it was a mandatory class and that we got to learn that. Yeah.
Implementing policy requires incorporating patients. Love it. And so much more in there. All right, folks. Let's leave you folks with a final question, and it goes back to how we started. What brought you to NYU, but what motivates you at this point to show up into this world of public health where there's so much going on? What is that one thing, your why, that's motivating you, each of you, in on this journey to continue in the public health world as you flourish out into the world outside of NYU as well?
I just think that I'm delusional about how capable I am. So I'm just gonna be like, I can change everything. So that sense of, just being neurotic is helpful, and just be like, I see all the problems and they look overwhelming to me. But I have a lot of faith in everyone's abilities. And I know that there are so many good people working towards the same things. So that's what drives me, that everyone cares as much as I do about people and public health and healthcare. So it's really good to be surrounded by this community and delusion. So
I have to laugh because I feel the same way too. I second that wholeheartedly, 100%. You feel as if you can do like everything, but I know we have our limits. But yeah, but that's what drives me too as well. The fact that I'm surrounded by so many people who share a similar mindset because of whatever concentration, whatever they're interested in. It all ties back to public health and doing good for like humanity. So like, I think nothing. That is what drives me, and that because this field it's hard, it's challenging. Like, I mean, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, you kind of get hit with a lot of heavy stuff, and you have to also have a support system is also necessary to get through. But knowing that you have a support system that has a similar goal as you do and working towards in the same direction, I mean, that's what motivates me and gets me through. So I'm just really, really happy to be here.
I guess what motivates me is honestly the believing that one day health will be seen as a true human right globally. It's a lofty goal, but I think given the tools that we've learned, whether it's real debates that you've taken in your policy classes or using a neural network in order to advance health care for everyone, I think feeling confident in the tools that we've learned, and that with the changing environment and with this new generation, especially seen in my peers with their passion and their empathy for others, it makes it feel real. It makes it feel like it'll happen. And it makes it feel like we could be the change that's going to happen in 10, 20 years. Maybe it is delusion, as Mahak said, but I don't know. If you've listened to the podcast, if you listen to the people who've been talking, the heart and the drive that everyone has, I don't see why not.
Yeah, we're going to do it. And to quote Glennon Doyle, we could do hard things.
yeah.
If we could get the string bala to fly off, we can make health equity fly off.
And that's what motivates me to keep doing this podcast. It's individuals like yourself and the entire world you operate in, and the great things you're doing for public health. Thank you so much, Corrinne, Rebecca, and Mehak, for tuning
Thank
into
you
another
for-
episode.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for having
us.
us. It
Yes.
was a privilege. Like, this was so nice. Thank you for selecting us to come here. And it was
Our
great.
pleasure. Our pleasure. Folks, if you have any questions, shoot them in the comments below. We'll be checking them out. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the IMGPH podcast. See you next time.